Good morning and welcome to Sarah's poetry time. Yes, I know I'm doing things a little bit differently today. Apologies for this video being late up. I didn't manage to get round to it on Monday. I'm hoping to get back into a regular pattern fairly soon. Now, as you know, Halloween's just finished and Christmas is around the corner. So I've got a little bit of a few poems that I want to read you. This first one is one of my favourites out of any poem that I've ever performed. Now, I don't personally celebrate Halloween due to faith reasons and things like that, but I do happen to like interesting stories and interesting poems to do with, like, not necessarily scary, but things that make you think. So, without further ado, the first poem I am doing is, The Listeners by Walter de la Mare. "Is anybody there?" said the traveller, knocking on the moonlit door, while his horse in the silence champed the grasses of the forest's ferny floor. And a bird flew out of the turret up above the traveller's head, and he smote upon the door again a second time. "Is there anybody there?" he said. No one descended to the traveller. No head from the leaf-fringed sill leaned over and looked into his grey eyes, where he stood perplexed and still. But only a host of phantom listeners that dwelt in the lone house then stood listening in the quiet of the moonlight to that voice from the world of men, stood thronging the faint moonbeams on the dark stair that goes down to the empty hall, hearkening in an air stirred and shaken by the lonely traveller's call. And he felt in his heart their strangeness, their stillness, answering his cry, as his horse moved, cropping the dark turf neath the starred and leafy sky, for he smote upon the door even louder, and lifted his head. "Tell them I came, and no one answered, that I kept my word," he said. Never the least stir made the listeners, though every word he spake fell echoing through the shadowiness of the still house from the one man left awake. Aye, they heard his foot upon the stirrup, and the sound of iron on stone, and how the silence surged softly backwards when the plunging hooves were gone. I hope you enjoyed that. Like I said, it's one of my favourite poems, and I love doing it to delight and intrigue the audience. The bit that always intrigues me, to be honest, is the bit where is the part where he goes, "Tell them I came and no one answered, that I kept my word." Bit of a mystery there. Now, the next poem is slightly more fun. This one I've known the beginning of for ages, but I unfortunately keep forgetting the rest of it, so I've actually got it up on my computer screen here. It's called "One Fine Day in the Middle of the Night," and I rather like it because it's completely silly, and you'll see why. Without further ado, now I do not know who wrote this, so currently it's anonymous. So, without further ado, one fine day in the middle of the night. One fine day in the middle of the night, two dead men got up to fight. Back to back they faced each other, drew their swords and shot each other. One was blind and the other couldn't see, so they chose a dummy for a referee. A blind man went to see fair play. A dumb man went to shout, "Hooray!" A paralysed donkey passing by kicked the blind man in the eye, knocked him through a 9-inch wall into a dry ditch and drowned them all. A deaf policeman heard the noise and came to arrest those 2 dead boys. If you don't believe this story is true, ask the blind man. He saw it too. As you can see, I rather like that poem. It's short, it's sweet, and is definitely to the point. I rather like it. The idea of having having a dummy as a referee and a paralysed donkey kicking somebody through a 9-inch wall, things like that. It's kind of like, okay, bit random there. The next poem is one of mine. I am being very, very vulnerable here, and now I'm hoping to turn all of my poems at some point into an anthology of poetry. However, for me it's getting up the courage to actually kind of do this. It scares me sometimes, and as such, the next poem I'm going to be reading is called Fear. Now, as you probably know, fear plays a massive part in Halloween. The idea that there are ghosts and ghouls and spooky things. Most people dress up for the fun of it. I don't dress up, as I said. I don't really partake in Halloween. I know that there are some people who will think that I'm going a bit far on that, but the whole idea of having a holiday more or less celebrating fear, not my idea of a good holiday. Christmas is fantastic. Christmas I love to pieces. But Halloween I don't like. And it scares me. So, like I said, now this next poem, like I said as well, it's about fear. It's more or less self-explanatory, I hope. If it's not, please let me know. But yeah. Without further ado, Fear by Sarah McGilvray. It grips us, holds us, makes us doubt. Is it me, we cry? God seems so far away. Our doubts and anxieties plague us. We have sleepless nights, worrying, not trusting. If only we would look upwards. Let him hold us, keep us safe. Fear should not hold us, strip us bare, make us hide behind our insecurities. Instead, let love invade us, drive out fear and enable us to live as children of a Father who is above all things, who cares for us and makes us whole. Amen. I have a big thing about fear. I don't like being scared. I don't like being afraid. I love God. I love being able to talk about him. I love being able to be passionate about him and to write about what I'm supposed to be, about things like fear and about oblivion and things like that. Now, a while ago, I wrote a poem called Oblivion. There are times when I'm great. There are times when I'm not so great. And I try and make sure that every single one of my poems has a bit of hope in it. Every one of my stories has hope in it. every single time. It can be a challenge to find it, but we get there. And I wrote this, I think for, I'm trying to remember when I actually wrote this. I'm sure it tells me somewhere. So, like I said, here we go. I wrote this last year on the 14th of May. Around that time, I'd found out that we were supposed to be moving house. I struggle with I do a lot of the time struggle with my emotions and how I'm feeling, and a lot of the time I don't always feel like I'm coping, especially with the new place. And at the time I was like, I don't know what I am supposed to be doing. I'm running from something that is big and I don't like it. It feels like when you're looking at fear, it looks like you are staring down into an abyss. It looks like you're having to face. When you face your fears, that doesn't mean the fear is gone. It means that there is somebody standing with you. And that is a beautiful thing, but it can be challenging. So I want to read you this. Like I said, it's called Oblivion. It's longer than the last one, but I really like. You'll see. Anyway, Oblivion by Sarah McGilvray. You stare down into the abyss, seeing the blackness writhe and boil like tentacles reaching out to grab you, pull you down into the void. Despair, darkness, and loss surrounding you, smothering you, make it hard to breathe, like drowning in your own filth and hopelessness. You try to take a step back, to deny its existence, to turn your back on it, but it keeps coming, a pinprick in the back of your head, eating away from the inside till you feel like nothing. A hollowed out shell with a body surrounding it, crouched in the corner, frightened to move. It is then, in the darkness of your mind, that he comes. The light. So small, yet filling you with hope, peace, and love. Together, you face the abyss, hand in hand. Then jump, knowing that where the light goes, darkness must flee, never to return unless allowed to. Amen. I really hope you enjoyed that. There are some beautiful poems. I like writing. You might have gathered this by now, the fact that I've already done 2 of my poems, and that's not even the beginning of it. Just, I hope shows how much I like writing. Finally, to end on a slightly more positive note, shall we say. Again, this was a poem I wrote, hold on, let me find out, March last year. It's short, it's sweet, it's to the point. Most of my poems tend to be very much to the point because I don't believe, with my poetry, I don't believe in beating about the bush, although I tend to be very much vulnerable and when I'm doing my poetry. It's quite scary at times doing your own stuff. But I really like some of the stuff that I've written. And I'm going to end on this one because I've talked enough about fear and I've talked enough about oblivion. And now I want to talk about peace. Complete change of subject, I know, but one of the things I found with getting used to a place like this, like my flat, which most of you hopefully will have seen, it's, excuse me, I love being able to live here. But it can be scary, especially when you're living on your own for the first time pretty much ever in your entire life. That can be really scary. Thankfully, I have one who protects me, he loves me, and he will always, no matter what, give me his peace. And last year I wrote a poem about that. Surprisingly enough, it's called Peace because I tend to name my stuff kind of obviously. But without further ado, and to close us off, I am going to read you Peace by Sarah McGilvray. A holy kiss has one to another, first the hand, then the cheek, then the forehead. He holds you, his child, vulnerable as a newborn, singing his lullaby over you, stroking your hair, his child who he holds so dear, sheltered and safe, resting in him, safe in his arms. Thank you for listening. Tune in next time when we'll have something else. I'm not sure what. I might be doing one of my own stories. We'll see. Speak to you soon.